The Galactic Council assembled beneath the corelite arches of Viral Prime, where planetary leaders of over 9,000 species gathered to maintain a delicate balance of power. The chamber spanned kilometers in every direction, designed to humble even the most arrogant rulers. But it had long since lost that effect on the Empire's delegates, especially the ones in uniform. General Alvar Kryn of the Galactic Empire stood tall and rigid near the central podium, his obsidian uniform bearing a dozen blood-red medallions of conquest. To his right, lesser species bowed their heads. To his left, powerful allies nodded with approval. Directly in front of him sat a human girl. Small, silent, and unnoticed. She wore a floral dress, Earth-style, simple, soft-colored. Her skin bore no armor, no enhancements. Her hair fell naturally, and her eyes remained downcast. She hadn't spoken once during the 3 hours of policy debate. No one expected her to. Most thought she was an observer. Some thought she was a translator's assistant. The Empire didn't even bother to ask. She was from Earth, and that made her irrelevant. Kryn had already dismissed 2 minor representatives that morning. His tone was clipped, his voice carried the weight of 1,000 battles. He turned toward the human girl as she received a datapad from a quiet Terran envoy. She stood to read a prepared statement, short and diplomatic, regarding human fleet expansion in neutral trade lanes. Standard Council business. The words weren't inflammatory. They were careful, measured. But to Kryn, any assertion from Earth smelled of defiance. And he hated defiance. "You presume," he snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence, "to dictate terms?" The chamber quieted. Her response was polite, offering clarification. Kryn stepped forward, past protocol, past civility. His hand moved before security could even think. The sound of the slap echoed. Her head jerked to the side. The pad slipped from her fingers. She didn't cry out. Didn't fall. Her cheek reddened, her eyes shimmered, but she stood still. "You forget your place," Kryn snarled, eyes narrowing. She looked up at him, not in fear, but with the detached observation of someone cataloging a specimen. Her voice didn't tremble. "You've made a mistake." There was no rush of guards. No outcry. Just silence. Deep, uncomfortable, festering silence. Kryn turned away, brushing her aside like a footnote in a war report. The council moved on. Other delegations shifted uncomfortably, but none intervened. The girl was escorted out by 2 unarmed human aides. She didn't look back. Her presence faded from the minds of everyone except a few who noticed something odd. Her expression hadn't changed. No tears. No fear. Just quiet calculation. Outside the chamber, she passed through the shielded corridors of Viral's lower levels, guided by men whose expressions gave away nothing. Once out of view, she tapped a simple device embedded in her wrist. A signal went out, bouncing through encrypted satellites, piggybacking on civilian broadcasts, routing through nebulae and dark zones. Less than a second later, it was received. On Earth, in the subterranean city of Bastion 1, the signal appeared as a single symbol. A hand, open-palmed, read, over a white star. High Admiral Kale did not blink as he read the message. Around him, no alarms sounded. No panic. He simply whispered a word to the command AI. Protocol Thanatos. Across dozens of systems, Black Ops ships powered up. Crews that had not spoken aloud in years began assembling silently. Old codes were reactivated. Observation outposts in Empire space went dark, deliberately. Human fleets didn't mobilize openly. Instead, satellites repositioned. Civilian ships altered course by mere degrees. And throughout the Council's reach, human personnel vanished from shared operations. Quietly, efficiently. Empire intelligence noted the absences, but assumed routine rotation. No one connected it to the girl. No one cared. Back in the Council, Kryn was lauded by some for his disciplinary action. Others disapproved quietly. But no formal complaint had been filed. Earth hadn't responded. 3 days later, An outpost on the edge of Empire territory failed to report. No damage was detected. No attack. It had simply gone silent. The Empire dispatched a patrol cruiser. It too vanished, without transmitting distress. Surveillance showed no sign of conflict. Just quiet termination. Still, the Council proceeded. Earth submitted no reports. No protests. The girl's name wasn't even logged. Kryn felt vindicated. What no one in the chamber realized was that the human girl had never been sent to negotiate. She was a message. 10 days after the incident, across 3 star sectors, automated Empire communications began experiencing microscopic signal degradation. Redundancies failed. AI networks stalled. Then someone accessed military schematics at a classified installation without breaking a single firewall. The data simply left. No source, no trace. A silent war had begun, and the Empire had already lost the first phase. Terran black fleets positioned along gravitational sink points. Mining ships, seemingly civilian, deployed stealth buoys. Weapons nobody in the Council had seen before, because they weren't weapons at all, began constructing orbital constructs that didn't emit heat, light, or movement. Quantum cloaks masked every signature. Empire High Command convened an emergency session. Kryn attended remotely, confident in his action, suggesting the humans were bluffing. No retaliation had arrived. No threats. Earth remained diplomatically silent. Then came the Whisper campaign. First in border worlds, then in major trading hubs. Stories of human war machines that fought in silence. Tales of AI so advanced they could simulate species-to-species negotiation outcomes with 98% accuracy. Stories of colonies that had survived extinction-level events and responded not with cries for aid, but with counter-sieges. The humans didn't announce their capabilities. Others did it for them. Smaller species began re-evaluating their alliances. Old trade partners turned cautious. Quietly, diplomatic envoys began reaching out to Earth, requesting meetings. Private, off-record. Gifts were offered. Data. Support. Access. Humanity responded with perfect politeness. Every request was reviewed. Every visitor treated with precision. Yet the central message remained: we are not seeking war. But we are never unarmed. On the 17th day after the slap, a galactic Empire cruiser stationed above a human-aligned moon detected a burst of radio static. Just static. But it lasted for 0.6 seconds too long. By the time they rechecked sensors, their ship's reactor was offline, control systems dead, and power rerouted to lock every escape hatch. The ship drifted for 40 minutes before life support cut out. No shots fired. No known weapon deployed. It became clear something, had rewritten the ship's core routines, and they hadn't even noticed until it was too late. Empire propaganda spun it as a reactor failure. But their engineers knew better. And so did the surviving crew, who were found days later floating in escape pods, comatose but alive, each with a single phrase carved into their uniforms: "We were warned." In the Council, murmurs turned to fears. No one wanted to admit it aloud, but the pattern was forming. Incident. Silences. Shadows. And all of it began with the slap. The Empire believed itself immune to consequence. Its leaders had grown fat on conquest, arrogant in their dominance. They underestimated Earth not out of ignorance but tradition. For centuries, humans had been dismissed as latecomers to the galactic stage, undisciplined, volatile, and too empathetic to survive realpolitik. What they never understood was that those very traits were not weaknesses, they were weapons sharpened in silence. The girl's identity was uncovered only after it was far too late. Not by the Empire, but by an independent archivist from the Kelvani Accord, who traced a sealed transmission code embedded in the Council network the day of the incident. Her name, once decrypted, sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. She wasn't a translator. She wasn't an aide. She was the daughter of Earth's Strategic Command Director, and her assignment had been sanctioned at the highest level of Terran High Command. She had authorization to activate Earth's Black Response Doctrine. The slap had been catalogued not just as an assault but as a ceremonial trigger. Humanity didn't need declarations of war. They had code protocols hardwired into policy. That one strike had bypassed every layer of diplomacy and moved Earth's response from possibility to inevitability. Humanity never attacked first. That was doctrine. But they always finished. By the time the Empire pieced together fragments of what was unfolding, nearly a dozen listening posts had gone offline. Empire Central Command ordered a full systems audit, unaware that the very diagnostic tools they relied on had been infiltrated 3 years earlier by Terran Cyber Unit. Their security AIs reported all systems green, while their actual data flows rerouted directly into human deep analysis cores. When a planetary governor ordered the arrest of a minor human diplomat in retaliation for the Council embarrassment, his star system experienced a planetary blackout within 17 minutes. Power stations overloaded in sequence. Gravity regulators on orbiting habitats shifted by fractional degrees, enough to induce nausea in all residents. The next day, every broadcast station on the planet began transmitting the footage of the girl in the council chamber. On repeat. No controls could shut it off. No authorities could silence it. She stood, silent, one cheek reddened. Her voice, "You've made a mistake." After the 50th broadcast loop, protest movements erupted spontaneously. Not human-led. Local species. They had seen enough of the Empire's tactics. Now they had a symbol of resistance. A small girl who had stood alone and said no. The Empire's propaganda machine kicked into overdrive. They declared the footage a deepfake. They blamed rogue AI cells. They claimed Earth had orchestrated everything to undermine galactic stability. But no amount of spin changed what people had seen with their own eyes. And when multiple non-Terran nations confirmed the footage's authenticity through forensic analysis, the Empire found itself isolated not by weapons, but by belief. Their narrative control fractured. Human diplomatic missions across neutral zones suddenly gained unprecedented access. Offers of alliance, shared defense pacts, trade acceleration. What once required decades of negotiation was now being handed over without cost. Earth accepted each offer calmly, with minimal fanfare, as if they had known this would happen. Because they had. 31 years prior, Terran intelligence had initiated Project Epitaph. Its goal was simple: catalog every weakness in the Empire's political, military, economic, and cultural systems, and develop silent override capabilities that could be deployed in the event of existential provocation. The slap had been anticipated. Not the act itself, but the likelihood of it. Humanity had been waiting for an excuse. The Empire handed it to them in full view of the galaxy. Military commanders within the Empire began to fracture. Some viewed the situation as recoverable. They pushed for shows of strength, border incursions, strategic displays of firepower. Others warned against escalation, citing growing unrest among allied species. The most paranoid among them suspected something worse, that humanity was not retaliating, but preparing to erase the Empire entirely. They weren't wrong. In a quiet conference room orbiting Saturn, Earth's senior military minds convened. Not to debate, but to plan. No council vote. No speeches. No hesitation. The decision was made in 32 minutes. Operation Echo Glass was initiated. Its objective was not invasion. It was silence. To make the Empire irrelevant. To cut off its voice, disrupt its coordination, nullify its allies. Humans knew that destruction wasn't the most powerful force in the universe, erasure was. And they had spent decades mastering it. First came the communications collapse. Empire high-bandwidth quantum relays began misfiring. Messages rerouted into dead node. Some arrived days late. Others returned corrupted. At first, Empire engineers blamed equipment failure. By the time they realized every node failure corresponded with known Terran proximity, it was too late. Command chains crumbled. Next came the economic unraveling. Banking algorithms, once immune to manipulation, began performing illegal duplications. Currency inflation skyrocketed in fringe systems. Financial panic spread as trading partners demanded transactions be conducted in Earth-backed credits only. Within 4 weeks, 10 Empire-aligned corporations defected and relocated their assets under Terran jurisdiction. This wasn't war. This was a controlled implosion. On the 72nd day after the Council incident, an entire Empire fleet patrolling near the Corman Rift vanished. Not destroyed. Not hijacked. Simply gone. A single message was transmitted from the void where they had once been. Response continues. No further warnings. The girl's image followed, not from human sources, but from intercepted fleet logs. Her face had become the Empire's ghost, a reminder of their failure, their shame. Kryn, who had returned to his homeworld in triumph weeks after the incident, now found himself under investigation. Not for the assault, no charges had been filed, but for catastrophic strategic misjudgment. His enemies within the command hierarchy moved quickly, leveraging the Empire's declining influence to justify his removal. He was arrested under military protocol, confined to quarters, and interrogated by his own subordinate. Still, he refused to apologize. He called Earth a threat to order, a dangerous anomaly. He said they should be crushed before they spread. But no one answered his rants. His words didn't matter anymore. He wasn't a general now. He was a liability. He didn't know that Earth was watching him, not with satellites or drones, but through psychological analytics built into every system he interacted with. Every word he spoke was processed, recorded, and evaluated. His patterns, routines, even biometric fluctuations were studied by machines trained to assess threats at a level no Empire AI had ever approached. Eventually, the analysis reached a single conclusion: Kryn posed no further risk. He had been neutralized, not physically, but ideologically. Earth didn't need revenge. They had purpose. The girl had not returned to the Council. She hadn't needed to. Her presence had done what no ambassador or fleet could. She had redefined power. Not through violence but through consequence. The collapse was not sudden. It was orchestrated with surgical patience, each thread of the Empire's authority pulled loose until its tapestry of power unraveled in silence. Earth never claimed credit. That was unnecessary. The galaxy already understood. Authority, once absolute, now bent under the pressure of Earth's quiet influence. Those who once sought proximity to the Empire's favor now rewrote their allegiances in Terran dialect. The Outer Rim territories, long ignored by the central bureaucracy, initiated a cascade of secessions. The governors didn't request permission. They simply transmitted declarations of autonomy and copied Earth's diplomatic corps. Every one of them was answered with efficiency, respect, and the same standardized acknowledgement. Earth recognized their independence, contingent only on the rejection of imperial coercion. In return, Earth offered technology, education, security. They all agreed. These weren't colonies. They were conversions. Empire loyalists attempted retaliation. They deployed 2 battle groups to retake one of the defecting systems. The vessels were state-of-the-art, crewed by veterans. As they entered orbit, every sensor array shut down simultaneously. Weapon locks failed. Communications stuttered. The starship's AI issued a warning: cease engagement. You are observed. Then they were gone. The crews weren't killed. They were removed. Spliced out of the Empire's theater. Each officer was relocated, carefully, precisely, to fringe planets under independent rule. Their memories untouched, their rank invalid. When they attempted to contact the Empire, their messages were absorbed and rerouted to void addresses. They didn't die. They were exiled in real time. Rumors of these events reached even the most isolated sectors. No propaganda could hide it. No explanation could dismiss it. The lesson was simple: attack and you will not be destroyed. You will be erased. Within weeks, recruitment within the Empire ceased. Training facilities shut down. Military academies closed their doors. Officers fled to neutral zones. No one dared issue orders. Not because they feared Earth's weapons. Because they no longer believed orders meant anything. In power vacuums, new voices rose. Some called for resistance. Others begged for negotiation. A few, desperate to preserve the old structure, proposed a secret retaliation against Terran interests. These meetings, encrypted and deep within secure networks, were infiltrated before the first sentence was completed. Each attendee received a personal file, time-stamped recordings of past crimes, suppressed records, concealed betrayals. None were released publicly. But every participant understood the implication. Earth could destroy them, but chose not to. One by one, they withdrew. The girl's name had become code among Terran agencies. Not a legend. A directive. Her presence had shifted Earth's strategic posture from restraint to preemption. She was not an agent. She was precedent. And in that precedent, every insult against Earth had become retroactively accountable. Empires usually died with violence. This one faded in the wake of knowledge. When the Empire's high strategos attempted to deliver a broadcast condemning Earth's influence, his voice fractured midway through the stream. The feed replaced him with footage of his own meetings, bribery transactions, falsified reports, the execution of dissenters. He was dead within days, not by assassination, but by his own council, desperate to distance themselves. They failed. Every world still bearing the Empire's crest now operated under dread. Trade convoys were ignored. Messages went unanswered. Neighboring systems had begun reclassifying their borders, and instead of war, there was only void. The Empire hadn't lost territory. The stars themselves now refused to acknowledge its presence. Humanity made no demands. Their silence was absolute. A coalition of former allies approached Earth, hoping to formalize a new order. Earth declined the throne. They offered cooperation, not rule. Regulation, not command. But their influence was unmistakable. They needed no fleets. Their presence alone guided decisions. A new council began to form, structured not around power, but responsibility. Earth refused to lead it. But their handprints were on every principle, every protocol, every ethical clause. When asked why, the Terran representative gave a simple answer. We remember how empires begin. The girl, meanwhile, remained hidden. Not forgotten. Not lost. She had become the symbol of an entire shift in galactic consciousness. Her image was now taught in non-human schools, not as a hero, but as a historical fulcrum. Students debated the meaning of her silence. Scholars speculated on whether her assignment had been part of Earth's larger plan. Theories flourished. No one ever answered. Earth issued no clarification. They understood that myths held more weight than fact. And she, more than anyone, knew that silence was not surrender. It was structure. Within the remnants of the Empire, some attempted to reignite loyalty. They raised flags, spoke of vengeance. They failed to realize that no one feared them anymore. What terrified the galaxy now was irrelevance. And that, above all, was what Earth had made of the Empire: irrelevant. One former admiral transmitted a plea to Earth. A single request to meet, to explain himself, to apologize for the part he played in escalating tensions. His message was acknowledged. He was never heard from again. Not vanished, simply removed from public record. His family was compensated. His crimes were never mentioned. His name became blank space in official histories. It was not cruelty. It was calibration. The core systems of the Empire, long reliant on tribute and extraction, began to starve. Not from war. From absence. Trade collapsed. Resource shipments ceased. Their machinery, once the envy of the stars, rusted. The population, indoctrinated into superiority, now faced the void of truth. They were not special. They were not feared. They were not needed. In their silence, they heard the voice of a girl they had ignored. "You've made a mistake." That message, played across every system she had ever touched, became prophecy. Not just of war, but of transition. Power had changed hands without a single planet burned, a single shot fired in aggression. Earth had evolved beyond conquest. They wielded narrative, consequence, accountability. And no empire could survive that. At the 100th day mark since the slap, the last standing Empire dignitary signed a document disbanding the High Command. It was sent across the old Imperial network. Most nodes no longer existed. The ones that did replied with a new signature, a Terran verification stamp, a digital reminder that the page had turned. The document was archived, then forgotten. No one celebrated. No one cheered. Earth issued no statement. The galaxy simply moved on. And somewhere, far from council chambers and fading Imperial banners, the girl walked under alien skies. She needed no bodyguards, no title. Those who passed her on the street never knew who she was. But they nodded. They stepped aside. They had seen what happened when someone didn't.